Hey guys, what is your purpose now as a light worker or as an awakening one? What is the spiritual path that will be of most benefit to you? So I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to offer an idea, and this is purely for you if it resonates with you. Of course, if this does not resonate with you, you throw it out completely. Today's story will be a little bit back to the esoterics and back to one of my favorite subjects, galactic history. And of course, you do not have to believe this, but if not, then just take the psychological truth, take the psychology of it, which is the psychology of the evolution of selves and societies. Now, assuming that we don't just have this life, that we're involved in this life, but we've evolved on a grander scale as a society, but also as a soul being over a great period of time. So at this point in the talk, those of you who do not resonate with this, you do not have to listen further. This is for those who are into something speculative. The evolution of our species, and therefore what is your role now as one who's awakening and one who has perhaps had a long history, much longer than you could perhaps imagine. If you feel in your heart that this is you, let's continue. Now, long ago, okay, before I begin the story, somebody once asked me in the comments, where do I get my information from? So this stuff about galactic history, I do not have beings who channel this to me. I have questions which I then research, and I find others who've channeled or written books, and then I go with what story seems to be psychologically valid. In other words, that helps me understand something about our evolution. I go with the stories that say that make sense. In other words, they fit in with other stories. They're not so outlandish as to be untrue. They strike one as, yes, this could be true, and this could be a metaphor for our current life. Either way, it carries within a psychological truth. The one channel who I follow for this is Lyssa Royal. She's been channeling for many years, one of the original channels, and she does a great work on galactic history. The channel on the light worker and the dark side of the light worker and the current role of the spirituality of the light worker, a very helpful person you can look up is Pamela Kribbe, Kribbe, who channels Yeshua. A very high level teaching, and he goes into the history of light workers and their term, which we might as well discuss now. So the light worker is not just a unicorn working with light. The light worker has a dark history. So now we are working with that light, but it comes from a place where we have encountered with our own darkness. And that this point in time now is the time of integration of the light and the dark. So that is the theme of today's message, the integration. And what is your spirituality now? Which I've given you a clue to one element at least of it, if you have had this long past, and if you're ready for this integration. So if we take a little trip to a long time ago, a place far away, when the humanoids first came into this universe, you could say, they, by their very nature of the outbreath of God into creation, from the beingness, from the nothing, if you like, now beings exist that are not full of oneness. So these beings will have with them a nature of not oneness but two-ness, and they will have a quality of the masculine energy of going outward, exploring, conquering, learning. So these, in Lyssa Royal's cosmology, would be the early Lyrans. They emerged in the area of where we know as the constellation Lyra. So when you talk about Lyrans, we tend to think of quite warrior energy people, beings. And this was incredibly long time ago. So these beings come out and they explore the world and gradually evolving, but the ways of the nature's exploration. Eventually they get into things like conquering and exploring power, because that's what you'll want to do, explore power. Now, as the story goes, after millennia of this, there were those cultures within the Lyran group who decided we're tired of conquering and this outward. Now, we're tired of this masculine energy, which is beginning to feel a little bit excessive. So what they want to do is they break away to form a softer culture and explore more of the feminine side, because now they're ready to do that. So they go off and live somewhere else, and in their own time explore that feminine aspect and have a softer culture. But now, this is the tricky bit, folks, because at that stage they're still relatively immature. This is us. When I say they, it's us, it's our history. Relatively immature. So it's the first glimpse, okay, we don't like that masculine sense, we're going to go and find feminine cultures. So what eventually happens is still containing the seed of that masculine, of that power struggle within you as you go to create the feminine utopia almost. So that's exactly what began to happen. Was now how do we keep this pure, this feminine energy that we want to explore? How do you keep it pure when there are people in the universe also who now perhaps want to dominate us because we are being submissive? So in order to separate themselves further, they adopted methods of repression, you could say. They wanted to create a pure feminine utopia. The only way you can do that now is by eliminating those who have that masculine energy. And what they do is they forget that in the doing of this, they are using a lot of that tyrannical, the overblown masculine energy to enforce this feminine utopia. So that also was not the answer, but it was one step forward in the game of integration, which is what we're talking about, the grand game of integration. So what they're learning there is that when you split off to form a different culture, you bring the old one with you. That's why I say, now that we're looking to explore Mars and colonize Mars as humans, what do we take with us? What do we take with us? How much integration do we take with us? Or do we just reenact the issues there that are here now? So going back to then, so it became a step-like process where cultures would split off, want to be on their own, and then have to do something to ensure the purity of what they wanted to do, which would then compromise them and then swing back to that original energy which they wanted to escape. So this has been going on for a huge amount of time. Along the way, one of the stops was the Orion system, which our Star Wars movies intuitively relate to, a very draconian, oppressive regime. And then the freedom fighters, the rebels. But of course now the rebels in fighting that and then calling themselves the good guys had to end up doing deeds that were not that good, and that made them very similar to who they were fighting. So even if you don't go into this galactic history, I'm quite okay if you don't resonate with it, but get from it the psychological truth of the opposites, the play of opposites, and how each opposite generates the other opposite. So if you go to the one to explore the one, hoping to leave the other one, that the other part eventually resurfaces. Okay, so even now, in the world we're having a balancing of masculine and feminine energies, so there's much talk of the goddess energy returning, which yes indeed is wonderful. So men can also become softer in that way. When I look at it, I'm also cautious of the extent to which that energy that is dressed up as feminine empowerment has a lot of the patriarchal qualities of oppression within it, and my way is the right way. So when I look at that, that to me is not enlightened. It is not a mature energy yet, but yet the value of it is a balancing. We now need to balance. We need to do a balancing act, but yet the warning sign is in a non-integrated aspect of that, which can be that you use the techniques of your opposition in yours and you justify it by saying the end justifies the means. In which case, if that is the belief, then you are merely perpetuating again. So some of those, the ancient feminist utopias became very horrible places because then they would have enforcers who would have to enforce unity. Now imagine, you can see these cults, how they work. We're going to form a utopia cult, and to do that everybody has to give up their belonging, give up their power, give up your own thoughts, give up everything. And to do this, we're going to have some people who enforce it, some people who are more equal than others, and these are the enforcers. So they very quickly get corrupted because the idea is to have some purity, and that purity is not really possible. So here we are with this backwards and forwards through millennia, and one of the main energies of this has been masculine and feminine, completely nothing to do with male or female, because both, as we know, can embody either of those energies. So as we're sitting now on this brink of a new earth, we carry with us this psychological history and this galactic history, and the question is, can we integrate these two great opposites? Every previous experiment has failed. Well, maybe not everyone, but the ones that are still running, it's got to be resolved. So then the question becomes, how do we bring these two together without again making them nullified, because that becomes a repression. So that is our great task. So I would like to put that out there as one of the spiritual disciplines of the light worker, the awakening one, which is you, is how do I integrate these dualities? What male and female is one, masculine and feminine is one of them. Do I get angry at a certain group of people? If I get angry at them and I'm projecting onto others, so my work is to pull back my projections from that and say, I am that too. I have been there and done that. I've been the oppressor too. Guys, if you think you are only like the witches burnt at the stake and being the victims, it's not true. If you are truly an awakening one, if you are at this stage of possibly the last karmic life on this planet, in other words, finishing a particular karmic journey, you've seen everything, you've been on both sides, you've played both sides of it. You can feel inside yourself, if you are an awakening one, you can feel deep in the desire for revenge, the desire for conquest. You just feel it. If I talk about it, you resonate with it. It's in there. If you think you haven't got it, maybe you've still got to go through it. But it can be interesting to see if you've got it inside, to find that place like, I've done that too. If not in this life, then another. We've all been tyrants, even now in this life. Today you could be a tyrant in some way. You don't even know it. That's what a tyrant is. You don't know it. So those are some of the aspects to integrate. I am that. So your path of integration is a spiritual path. It's the grandest task. It is most difficult to integrate. If you can give yourself a break, this has taken millions and millions of years. and then we're still working at it. So they say that Earth as a planet is almost like the last experiment of this, because all the galactic influences are here on this planet in our genetics, trying to get it right. Black and white, man, female, active, passive, all those dualities, we're sitting in them, they're inescapable. So they're saying, here's a place where we're going to try as a mixing pot to get this integration thing. And it is difficult because we have such wild emotions, from sadness to despair to joy, light, love. Those two, my friends, are to be integrated. So here's the other little trap of the spiritual path we taught, to only feel to feel positive. At a certain level, yes, that is good advice. Feel positive, because sometimes negative is a habit, and you're just looking at the world through habitual lenses that always sees the negative. So yes, brighten it up. There are many ways you can choose to brighten up your life. Yet the negative is always going to keep appearing, not because you do anything wrong, but because that is the nature of duality. And as humans, we're going to feel the sadness and joy. That's part of the human journey. So the spiritual quest is not to get rid of them. It is to work more skillfully with them, and to have a different relationship to those emotions. So here's joy coming. Here's fear coming. Can you be present with that? Can you sit with the fear, with your projection, with your hatred of some group perhaps, and know that you perhaps will not get rid of that in this lifetime, and maybe that you do not even have to. Your task is integration. To get this, your task is not for light to overcome dark. It's not going to happen. In a relative sense, things will lighten, but there will always be duality. The real task is to step beyond that light and dark to the place of integrated being. That integrated is both masculine and feminine, light and dark, peace and that which is not peace, at peace. You're the presence, you're the awareness that witnesses and experiences those dualities. So I'm offering here the insight of the third position. The third position, light, dark. We go to the third position, which is that which holds both. And there's a relief that can come into this, because now you know you do not have to solve these two. You just have to be one that holds them and holds the contradictions. The contradictions always be in place. So you can be in pain, but you can also be in bliss. You can be in physical pain, but in bliss. That is the magic of the metaphor of the cross. It was such a resonant image in the Western imagination, that you can be in deep pain, you can be in deep persecution, but yet also be most divine, most in touch with your divinity. So that is the place of the integration. I am on the cross in the pain of the physical body, yet I am also divine. If we try to be just one or the other, that is not the integrated position. That's not the Christ consciousness position. If you're only in spirit and love and light, that's not our task. That's not why we're here. That's what angels do. Why we're here is to do the difficult game of being both on the cross, human and divine, with conflict, with pain, sadness, joy, not getting it right, learning forgiveness of that which resists our attempt to control, and then forgiving ourselves when we try to control. That is the Christ-like energy. So I'm suggesting that as an awakening one, that you consider this as a possible spiritual practice. The integration and the holding space of all of those dualities. So maybe by the end of your days, you have not solved all your neuroses and all your issues and got all your relationships right and all your finances right, but yet you have gained a softness. You have softened them. You have forgiven yourself. You have forgiven this world for that which you cannot get right, because you're not supposed to get it right. Your path is integration, and that is having the two together and being the third point that holds, what watches, witnesses, and experiences those two. Okay, we'll leave it there. Can you, in this moment, with whatever's happening within you, belief, disbelief, pleasure, pain, just be the witness. And this is it.